This is Quill on Air presenting to you SNU Quill's 76th volume in audio format. From the Editor by Seung. Before I formally address this semester's volume and give our members the praise they rightfully deserve, I would like to make a confession. I still have not watched Parasite nor Squid Game. Sorry, just had to get that off my chest. Also, what's up with all this snow? I spent most of this winter just complaining about how snow ruins everything. So yeah, you could say I'm fun at parties. Come to think of it, this year itself felt like a blizzard. Crazy, unstable, uncalled for, and horrible when you find yourself stuck amid the storm. Yet beautiful when you take a step back and look at the world covered in white gold. I was never a big fan of snow. As beautiful as it seems, there is just so much pain that coexists. Snow is frozen rain that produces slippery roads. Another byproduct of snow is slush, which is not only slippery, but also stains your shoes and pants. So, what do you do when there's a snowstorm outside? You call your friends and family, check in to see if they are okay, and then proceed to call your boss to ask if you could work from home. Sound familiar? The pandemic, like the blizzard, impedes us from rejoicing with our loved ones and from leaving the house. We therefore try to find the next best alternative to show that we care. We might enjoy longer phone calls, recommend TV shows so we could talk about it afterwards, hold online gatherings, etc. We know the drill. You can also choose to deal with the storm. To quickly rid of the hazards, we need to cooperate. Sure, the ice will melt by itself, sooner or later, but if we clean up our parts of the road, we can prevent damage. For me, the SNU Quill members were my support this semester. I wished for more offline meetings and gatherings, because after all, what is a university club without some social events? Nevertheless, the odds were not in our favor. From no restrictions to harsh restrictions, this year felt pretty bipolar. Naturally, I had my ups and downs while running Quill this semester. To make things even more hectic, for the first time in my lifetime, I had to pick up designing due to the lack of resources. I had a chance to not only stand, but also walk in the shoes of our designers. Boy, is designing rough. As much as I am thankful for all the members that diligently worked through the semester, I feel responsible for the lack of connections we could have made throughout. I take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude towards everyone who contributed to Quill. Although we were unable to make deep connections this semester, I hope that 2022 brings us more opportunities for socializing. Now, it is almost time for us to step back outside into the ice and slush. Are we fully prepared? Maybe yes, and maybe not. We have our heavy coats on, masks on, and are ready to steadily walk out. We might slip, fall, and if you're dramatic like me, cry. However, we will keep trying to reach our friends and love. Weather forecasts are never accurate, so the storm may not be over. But amid all this lunacy, we try to find the beauty of a snowstorm. Now I propose my New Year's resolution. The next time it snows, I will eagerly grab a shovel and jump outside to offer some help.
The featured section where we dig deep into the social, political, and environmental issues of the world. Greed, a modern ingredient for success, written by Dong-Hyun Lee. On September 13, 2021, a small company named Hwacheondae Asset Management made headlines due to allegations of raising unfair profits through unethical relations between political and business cycles. 조선일보, one of Korea's major newspapers, announced that Hwacheondae, which started in 2014 with a capital of 50 million won, has received 57.7 billion won in dividend income so far through the Daejangdong development project. Soon after, it was revealed that a total of 7 people made more than 700 billion won in profits through the Daejangdong project, thus raising serious questions of corruption. 조선일보 also claimed that Lee Jae-myung, the former governor of Gyeonggi-do and now a presidential candidate for the Democratic Party of Korea, was involved in the project. Even though the relationship between the developer of the Daejangdong project and Lee Jae-myung has not yet been confirmed, the close relationship between Seongnam City officials and Hwacheondae owners is causing an uproar. The events surrounding Hwacheondae Gate are shocking to say the least. Aside from the issues of fairness and justice, the scale of profits are exceptionally large. To put the 100 billion won of profits per person into perspective, even if 80 million won are spent every month for 100 years, the original amount does not completely cease to exist. The 7 profiteers did not earn money through fraud, theft, or embezzlement. Instead, they made money through a legitimate real estate development business. If so, a question arises as to what business methods guarantee such huge profitability. The answer lies within the concepts of real estate project financing, PF, and special purpose companies, SPC. A precise introduction into real estate development is needed for a correct understanding and judgment of the Hwacheondae case. Real estate project financing. Real estate PF are the ways in which a company raises funds for a real estate project. But what is a real estate project? A real estate project means transforming pre-existing real estate into more valuable real estate and then selling it. For instance, constructing a building on empty land, tearing down and rebuilding existing buildings, etc. The Daejangdong development was part of a housing site development scheme, which creates large-scale residential complexes by developing new towns outside the city or in underdeveloped areas. Therefore, the real estate project promoted by Hwacheondae was the transformation of the underdeveloped Daejangdong into a large-scale residential complex along with Seongnam-si. The program generally aims to construct new buildings in places with good access to Seoul. Therefore, the value of real estate belonging to the project is very high, and in the process, the project developer usually gains high profits. All in all, a real estate project itself has the potential to be a profitable business model. Why is financing necessary and what role does it play? The main characteristic of real estate development is a very high initial cost. Simply put, buying land for the project site, demolishing any pre-existing buildings on its premises, and finally setting up new buildings requires astronomical financial input. In the case of Daejangdong, a total of 1.3 trillion won was spent on the development. Of course, a single person can launch a business with only their money, but it is close to impossible to acquire such large sums alone, and above all, it is inefficient. To elaborate on the subject, I would like to introduce the term leverage effect. In financing, leverage means borrowing money. Assume you are doing business with 50,000 won. You spend 50,000 won to buy a dress and sell it for 55,000 won, which means the rate of return is 10%. Not too shabby. On the other hand, if you purchase the same piece of clothing sold at 50,000 won, but you only pay 10,000 won yourself while borrowing 49,000 won from a third party, you earn the same amount as before, which is 5,000 won, but the rate of return has maximized up to 400%. This is because you spend much less money to buy the clothes in the first place. In other words, raising funds through debt and producing high returns is called leverage effect. In general, developers can raise huge initial investment costs and at the same time enjoy the leverage effects through loans. Special purpose companies. A developer who wishes to construct real estate borrows money, real estate PF. Financial institutions lend money and receive fixed interest. The remaining money after paying back the principal and interest borrowed from financial institutions from the total development revenue is up to the developers. In the Daejang-dong project, Seongnam Park, an SPC established for the development of Daejang-dong, will receive the money. The Seongnam Park company was solely created for the purpose of carrying out the development of Daejang-dong. These companies are called SPC as they are temporarily established for specific purposes. In this case, the purpose is real estate development. The reason for establishing an SPC is to secure investors by involving a company whose sole focus lies in the project matter and in return to raise funds more easily. Seongnam Park was established in a public-private partnership. The equity structure of Seongnam Park is as follows: Seongnam Development Corporation 50%, Hwacheondae 1%, and SK Securities 6%. Since several companies make up Seongnam Park, profits from the development of Daejang-dong are distributed to each company according to a predetermined profit structure. Seongnam Development Corporation has preferred shares, whose owners have the right to take dividend income first, which means dividend income is a sum of money paid by a company to its shareholders out of its profits. The rest is distributed to common stock owners such as Hwacheondae, who own 14.28% of common shares, and SK Securities, who own 85.72%. Accordingly, dividend income was distributed as follows: Seongnam Urban Development Corporation earned 183 billion won, Hwacheondae 57.7 billion won, and SK Securities 346 billion won. From this point of view, Hwacheondae's profits seem relatively low. However, SK Securities did not invest in the Daejang-dong project itself because it is a specified money trust operated by SK Securities. To put it simply, there are investors who indirectly contributed financial support through SK Securities. 7 individuals, one of which is the owner of Hwacheondae, established the so-called Cheonghwa-dongin companies number 1 to 7 and invested indirectly through SK Securities. See Figure 1. Let us reassess the distribution of profits. Through the development of Daejang-dong, Seongnam Development Corporation earned 183 billion won, and Hwacheondae and fellow investors earned 400 billion won in dividend income, adding up to about 300 billion won in a permanent sales revenue and a total of 700 billion won for the investors. See Figure 2. There are 2 reasons why they were able to make substantial amounts of profit. Firstly, real estate PF was used to exploit the leverage effect, generating huge profits with small input. Secondly, when organizing the SPC Seongnam Park, a profit structure was created so that a total of 7 investors could collect excess profits above a certain level. What are the problems with this profit structure? Yoo Dong-gyu, Chung Min-young, Namuk, Jun Young-hak, and Kim Man-bae are currently indicted for violating the law on aggravated punishment of specific economic crimes. Namuk, Chung Young-hak, and Kim Man-bae are all owners of Hwacheondae. Yoo Dong-gyu, the head of Seongnam Development Corporation at the time of the Daejang-dong project, on the other hand, was indicted on charges of conspiring with Kim Man-bae to allow Hwacheondae to unfairly acquire 68.1 billion won as dividend and sales profits from the project. In return, Yoo Dong-gyu was promised 70 billion won in bribes from Kim Man-bae, of which 352 million won was actually received. Lawyer Jang Min-young, a former head of the Strategic Project Division of Seongnam Development Corporation, was in charge of writing guidelines for the Daejang-dong development project. He was accused of advantageously determining the criteria for selecting a developer and making guidelines to maximize Hwacheondae's profits. Specifically, Hwacheondae received preferential treatment before and during the Daejangdong development project. Kim Man-bae, the owner of Hwacheondae, decided on the profit structure of the project in a way that was favorable to Hwacheondae and delivered the arrangement to Yoo Dong-yu. This allowed Hwacheondae and other investors to take excess profits. In addition, Hwacheondae submitted a business plan based on the guidelines that were delivered in advance, thus being in a better position during the selection process. The accumulation of these actions can only be called unfair competition. In other words, a small number of individuals intercepted the public's interest. There are two main problems that can be found in the Daejangdong project. The first issue is that there is a lack of legal methods to prevent the corruption of bureaucrats. The whole incident was revealed 5 years after the project was completed, and a newspaper, not a public institution, started the investigation in the first place. Thus, it is questionable whether the internal monitoring function of the bureaucratic group is properly performing. Secondly, the reliability of public projects was compromised. Public projects or government policies are very ineffective unless they evoke public trust. An example is the sharp rise in housing prices, which is currently a huge problem in South Korea. The government declared it will implement policies to lower housing prices from 2020. However, since housing policies have only raised housing prices, people are repeatedly panicked and bought homes at high prices without believing in the government policies. If the integrity of policies decreases, the last resort to solve social problems disappears. All in all, the Daejangdong project has greatly reduced the reliability of public projects as a whole, and therefore marks a problematic shift in the relationship of the Korean public with its supposed representative, the government. When Home Becomes Hell, written by Seung. Recently, there has been a considerable amount of controversy surrounding the accommodation of refugees from Afghanistan. Some people insisted that for the sake of humanity, all the refugees should be given shelter, while others maintained that the safety of citizens should be paramount. However, did you know that people can become refugees for reasons other than political disorder? In 1990, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, noted that the greatest impact of climate change could be on human migration, with millions of people displaced by shoreline erosion, coastal flooding, and agricultural disruption. This marked the beginning of climate refugees, that is, people who have to leave their homes owing to climate-related disasters. The problem is that most people have not even heard of the term climate refugees ever before. This article aims to raise awareness of climate refugees by providing information on three major disasters: desertification, rising sea levels, and wildfires. Life in the sand. Desertification is the degradation of land in drylands, including arid, semi-arid, and dry subhumid areas, resulting from various factors such as human activity or climatic variation. Such drylands are home to 38.2% of the whole global population, about 3 billion people. About 250 million of them are directly affected by desertification, a number hardly fathomable. While climate change is a significant factor that exacerbates desertification, the process also contributes to climate change due to negative impacts on vegetation coverage, increased sand aerosols, and greenhouse gas emissions, creating a vicious cycle. Thus, it is no surprise that the intensity of desertification has worsened over the past few decades. The risks that residents face in such areas are considerable, the most representative of which include loss of land productivity and respiratory diseases. Since most dryland populations heavily depend on the agricultural sector for their livelihoods, the impact of climate change and desertification is formidable. Actually, poverty is increasing in the dryland areas of sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, where many are forced to leave their homes for cover. Mongolia is a perfect example of climate refugees due to desertification. The Gobi Desert of Mongolia is expanding at the rate of 3,370 kilometers to every year, which is bigger than the complete area of Seoul. Livestock is being killed because of climate irregularities. Food and water are becoming ever more scarce than ever before, and land for agriculture and pasture is decreasing, expelling the residents to places other than their original homes. Such climate refugees are excluded from the scope of central heating. They are forced to use raw coal and lumber for warmth, leading to additional air pollution and the aggravation of climate change, which again causes desertification. The signs for multiple vicious cycles are evident. Sinking below the surface. Another climate-related disaster is rising sea levels due to global warming and the resultant melting of glaciers. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, if all the glaciers and ice caps on Earth melted simultaneously, the global sea level will rise by about 70 meters. Such an amount of water can flood almost every coastal city in existence. Imagine your own village slowly but surely becoming a lake and the innate panic that appears every morning when you open your eyes and peek at how much further the water would have crept. What a horrible life. This is precisely what is happening to Tuvalu at this moment. Originally, Tuvalu was a beautiful island under the influence of the tropical climate in the South Pacific. However, more and more of the island is being submerged, and the citizens were faced with roads that were cut off and flooded houses. Currently, residents are still living on the island since they do not have anywhere else to go, but soon most will be driven out of the island by the water that used to be idyllic. Initially, the island was politicized as sinking, but soon after it was corrected to be caused by the rising of sea levels due to global warming, fossil fuels, plus other forms of greenhouse gas emissions. In school, the children of Tuvalu are educated about the status quo and the possibility of having to leave their homes if the problem deteriorates. There are concerns about the mental trauma that these children would have to endure. Even if the refugees manage to find adequate lodgings before the island disappears completely, the image of their home sinking would possibly result in fear of the sea for children in general. Also, the representative of Tuvalu has been traveling to various countries to notify them of this problem and to plead with them to accommodate refugees from Tuvalu. Befriending ashes and cinders. A wildlife differs from fires ignited in buildings in that it is an unplanned, unwanted, uncontrolled fire in an area of combustible vegetation in rural and urban areas. Unlike the disasters introduced previously in this article, wildfire is not limited to a specific region, but can occur almost anywhere with sufficient combustibles and can devastate large areas in a surprisingly short amount of time. This means that anyone can become a climate refugee from one minute to the next without warning. In 2021 alone, wildfires raged in Canada, the United States, Greece, and Turkey. Is this a problem specific to the year 2021? Of course not. Travel a year back and more than 8,100 wildfires burned over 3.9 million acres in California, destroying more than 7,500 structures and displacing thousands of people. In Oregon, 500,000 people were put under evacuation order. The harm inflicted by wildfires takes a long time to be restored, thus the people who were originally living in the region should temporarily find somewhere else to go. If the scale of the wildfire is significant, then permanent damage to the environment might prevent them from returning to their homes for the rest of their lives. The need for change. Is there any way to get out of this hell? Definitely yes. Even small actions in our daily lives can help mitigate the effects of climate on specific regions and salvage refugees. First of all, we should make a habit of checking carbon footprints when consuming products. A carbon footprint is the cumulative amount of CO2 that a product emits in the process of collecting raw material, making and processing the product, transporting it to the market, selling it to consumers, and disposing of it in the future. Two of the aforementioned disasters are clearly climate-related, and wildfires also become more frequent as dry areas increase due to climate change. Since CO2 emissions are a major factor in aggravating climate change, checking our consumption habits and trying not to buy products that produce too much carbon would be a good start in slowing down climate change. Also, if you have an Instagram account, maybe you could tell your friends about the problems going on in Mongolia or Tuvalu. The more people know about it and participate, the more help it will be. Additionally, walking instead of driving cars, decreasing the use of air conditioners, and consuming less meat are all ways to improve the climate crisis. Small changes will lead to bigger outcomes. This article has discussed the problems climate refugees are currently facing with special focus on desertification, rising sea levels, and wildfires. We have also touched upon several small changes that individuals can make in their daily lives to solve the status quo. Ultimately, governments should cooperate to find a way to regulate corporations from harming the climate, while also coming up with a standard to define and accommodate climate refugees as well. The climate refugee problem will be a long battle. Thus, as we are preparing to solve the most fundamental problem of climate change, we should also try to rescue the people currently residing in problematic areas. Therefore, countries should devise new related policies while also persuading citizens who object to refugee accommodation so that they can take in more displaced people. When the small changes of individuals are united with the substantial improvements of the government, perhaps one day we will be able to live in a world where home lives up to its name. If you would like to participate more directly in solving the climate refugee crisis, enter this link. It leads to a funding site that aims to help Mongolians suffering from disasters, including desertification. Sorry to lead you on queerbaiting as a media practice written by Tomri Silenkert. Imagine the following. You are an individual who identifies as a gay man. One lazy weekend, you are lying in your bed, scrolling through YouTube. You stumble across a video called We Are Gay, Our First Kiss. The thumbnail of this particular video is clearly showing two men. Finally, you think it is nice to see some gay representation in media. You click on the video and something seems odd. These people do not seem to be a couple. Regardless, you watch it patiently, anticipating the revelation of their first kiss until the end. But it never happens. You are disappointed. You have all the right to be upset because you have just been queerbaited. Queerbaiting frequently happens in the media. It is not only an inconvenience, but it might in fact have negative consequences for the members of the LGBT+ community. Let us explore the concept of queerbaiting and its possible effects in this article. What is queerbaiting? Simply put, queerbaiting is a media practice in which media consumers are led to believe that a media product contains LGBT+ representation when it does not. Queerbaiting is a fan-coined term which has recently gotten scholarly attention. Judith Butler defines queerbaiting as a strategy by which writers and networks attempt to gain the attention of queer viewers via hints, jokes, gestures, and symbolism suggesting a queer relationship between two characters, and then emphatically denying or laughing off the possibility. Denial and the mockery reinstates a heteronormative narrative that poses no danger of offending mainstream viewers at the expense of queer eyes. Another scholar defines queerbaiting as teasing and denying, robbing people of representation and space, an expression of homophobia and exploitation, and reproduction of heterosexism. This definition is significant because it emphasizes the importance of representation. Michael McDermott's study, in which online fans that identified as queer were interviewed, helps us understand the devastating effects of queerbaiting in the media. One of the many media tropes surrounding queer characters is the "bury your gays" trope, which refers to the practice of killing queer characters on television to obtain the greatest emotional responses. While the trope has emerged as a tool for queer authors to write queer narratives without facing negative consequences associated with the endorsement of homosexuality, as the society became more accepting of LGBT plus people and identities, the queer fans' perception of this trope also changed. Bury your gays is considered as a harmful and damaging practice by queer fans. A lesbian informant in McDermott's study states the BYG trope reflects the idea that queer people somehow don't deserve happy endings. The CW television show The 100, for instance, executes this trope. The queer fans of the show were excited about the relationship between the characters Clark and Lexa. However, the possibility of a healthy relationship between the two disappears when Lexa is killed in the show after the scene in which the two had sex for the first time. Of course, the scene was advertised frequently. Elizabeth Bridges' blog post about Lexa's death captures the pain experienced by many queer fans. And I, along with our entire fandom, was steeped in due desolation. This was not just a character dying. This was not just the end of a beautifully developed same-sex relationship, unlike any other we had seen on screen. It was the death of our hope. It was the death of our hope, forever feeling like we matter, like we are equal participants in this world. This was the assurance of what we have always suspected, always known in fact, we live in a culture that hates us and believes we deserve to die because of who we love. Why is representation important? There are unequal power dynamics within society. As we live in a heteronormative society, members of the LGBT plus community live as a minority. If minority groups such as the LGBT plus community are accurately represented in the media, it can be a step towards raising awareness about the disadvantages that LGBT plus community members experience in their daily lives. Furthermore, through raising awareness, it will be possible to improve the lives of LGBT plus community members. Misrepresentation, however, will likely have the opposite effect. Sanchez Soriano explains that through cinematic discourse, it is possible to infer how minorities such as the LGBT plus community are spoken about or represented. In this way, a negative cinematographic discourse about this group affects how stereotypes and prejudices of them, and specifically social representations, are maintained and formed, promoting attitudes such as homophobia. As seen in the example of Lexa's death in The 100, queer viewers who identify with queer characters like Lexa are affected by what happens to the characters both on a social and personal level. On a social level, Lexa's death reaffirms the prejudice that a queer relationship cannot have a positive outcome within the society that we currently live in. On a personal level, the queer viewers are left in despair. They are led to believe that their place in the world is less important and they do not deserve a happy ending. In reality, people are diverse and everybody lives their lives differently. Being part of a minority group should not rob people of a happy life. Thus, including varied and realistic characters appears to be one of the ways in which we can create a more accepting society, not only for the LGBT plus community, but for everyone. Examples of appropriate LGBT plus misrepresentations in the media. Examples of queerbaiting and negative media representation are easy to find. For instance, BBC's Sherlock is notorious for queerbaiting and bluntly making fun of the viewers who support a homosexual interpretation of the relationship between the two lead characters, Sherlock Holmes and John Watson, referred to as John Locke by the fandom. The friendship between these two characters, originally created by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, has always been suitable for investigation from a queer perspective. BBC's Sherlock is no exception, and it especially lends itself to, arguably even encourages such a reading, with its purposefully polysemous dialogue, normalization of gayness, lead actors' intense chemistry, and clever intertextuality, cinematography, and scoring. Despite these aspects of the show, Stephen Moffat, TV writer and producer, has repeatedly stated in the press that the main characters are not going to be canonically together in a relationship. However, it is essential to know that the audience is not passive but agentive. They engage with the series in various ways, such as writing fanfiction. Nonetheless, the queer fanfictions, just like the queer expectations, are also at risk of not being taken seriously. For example, after being asked to read an erotic genre fanfiction without prior notice, the lead actors Cumberbatch and Freeman have expressed their dislike of shipping their two characters, defined as putting them into a romantic and frequently explicit relationship in fiction and art, calling it weird. Thus, fans are teased about a queer possibility, and their attempt to engage with the product as a way to express themselves is treated as a delirious fantasy. Nowadays, fortunately, the number of media products which demonstrate a better understanding of LGBT plus identities and appropriately represent the community without exploitation has increased. One successful example is the Netflix show BoJack Horseman's representation of asexuality. Main character Bojack's friendly and eccentric housemate Todd realizes that he is asexual in the later seasons of the series. As Todd realizes that he loves his girlfriend Emily but does not desire sexual intimacy, he first comes out to her as nothing, as in not gay or straight. As the show progresses, Todd understands his asexuality and explores the dating life as an asexual, through which the show skillfully clarifies some misconceptions around the identity. Thus, asexuality is accepted, and the show neither makes it the sole trait of the character nor plays this aspect of the character as a joke. Another Netflix series, Sex Education, also approaches asexuality among many other identities, with the addition of Lily and Ola's unlabeled queer relationship precisely. It is heartwarming to see Jim Milburn, who is the main character's mother and sex therapist, tell the worried young girl who storms into her room and says that she does not want to have sex ever, and that she might be broken, to consider the possibility of her being asexual and that she's not broken. HBO's Euphoria is another series which includes various LGBT plus characters. The most important aspect of how LGBT plus identities are handled in Euphoria is that it perfectly captures the fluidity of identities. Additionally, the producers have consulted LGBT plus individuals during the process of production, thus it captures the perspective of those within the community. In summary, queerbaiting is a mediated tradition of intentionally or unintentionally exploiting queer viewers and depriving LGBT plus individuals of representation. Due to this, queer individuals always feel the need to approach new media products which claim to depict LGBT plus skeptically. As an example, watching that new movie with a character that says "I'm non-binary" in the trailer is an anxious way to find out whether the character is genuine and treated properly within the cinematic discourse, or if this is yet another queerbait. However, as stated above, newly released media products have increasingly become more inclusive. It seems that producers are becoming more precise about adopting more accurate representations. Thus, queerbaiting as a media practice has a fair chance to become obsolete as both our society and the corresponding media progressively becomes willing to embrace diversity.
This news section. Everything you need to know about Seoul National University's campus life. Every time. A controversial commodity by Seung. COVID-19 has substantially increased the importance of online school communities, as it is considerably harder to interact with other students or gain information on school issues. In the case of students who entered colleges after COVID, it can be even harder to gain school information offline. This has resulted in an increased usage of online school communities among college students in South Korea. So what is Everytime? Launched in 2011, Everytime is one of the most prominent online communities at Seoul National University. Everytime offers features such as creating timetables and sharing information through various sections. Sections on the school dormitory, computer sciences/programming/IT, and fitness are among the most popular sections. Sections for graduates, freshmen, different majors, and careers also exist. If an upload gets 10 likes or more, it appears on the hot post section, enabling more students to view the post. There is also a section called 대학 백과, in which people ask questions about college admissions to SNU students. Many participants are high school students aspiring to enter SNU. You can also calculate your GPAs, buy or sell used books, and search for school cafeteria menus. Everytime reviews can be used for reference when choosing which classes to take. Students gain information on the specifics of each class, such as the kinds of tests or assignments that are given, and the evaluation students receive by reading reviews from students who took the class in previous semesters. Reviews also show when the writer took the class, which can be important as the details of many classes have changed after COVID. The slight downside is that some functions are unavailable for summer/winter semesters. Previous exam questions or tukbos can be found on SNU Life, which is another SNU online community. Everytime itself does not provide tukbos, but offers exam information, such as recommended test strategies or sample questions. However, some students try to gain needed tukbos on Everytime if they aren't available on SNU Life. Giving a food coupon or money for a tukbo is a norm. Trading tukbos in Everytime has been the subject of much controversy. Many have negative views about the matter, as it can be considered as trading lecture information for money. On the other hand, others see this as a democratization of information. This is because in many cases, it can be very difficult for non-major or double-major students to gain tukbos from other sources. Lastly, Everytime can be a source of immediate information on school issues. As it takes some time for school authorities to officially inform students on urgent issues, checking Everytime can be a way to know if there is a school-wide problem. During the fall semester of 2021, repeated malfunctions on ETL and the course registration system caused even more students to access Everytime. There are many uploads in Everytime that criticize the recurrent site access issue. Many posts on the malfunction appeared on the hot post section, showing that numerous students experiencing the problem were interested in the posts. Some students contacted the school officials to make inquiries about the situation, and they posted the details of the answers in Everytime to inform other students. However, there were also uploads that made insulting remarks towards the information system and technology workers. Even after the situation was solved, there were many posts that criticized the event. Interestingly, some of the posts included ideas on how to improve the course registration system. They provided details on how other universities operated course registrations and suggested dividing students into several groups that register courses on different days to ensure the system's stability. These instances show how Everytime functions as a source of student discourse on school issues. What are the prominent issues? As many anonymous online communities go, the comments of Everytime users can be very aggressive. This is particularly recognizable regarding topics related to politics or gender conflicts. Disrespectful comments towards people of certain majors or careers can also be found. Extreme opinions abound, and many users lash out at others who present different opinions. Some posts also excessively criticize individuals anonymously. These are called 저격글, and the specifics vary from attacking dormitory roommates or classmates from Zoom sessions to degrading student council candidates by making false claims. Deleting questions was a recurrent problem in Everytime. Some users delete their questions just after someone answers them, making them unable to be viewed by other people with similar questions. This situation has been somewhat improved after a setting that prevents questions from being deleted was added. Suspicions of censorship are regularly aroused. Users found the sub-uploads on politics were deleted by Everytime, and the writers were blocked from using the site for months. This is one of the reasons why the section for current events and issues rarely has relevant uploads. Censorship by section managers is also a problem. The users that create a section or those who gain access otherwise become managers. According to Everytime regulations, they are authorized to take appropriate measures, which include deleting uploads. However, some section managers continuously deleted uploads that weren't against the regulations or uploads that criticize them. It should be acknowledged that Everytime can be a very helpful online community for university students in many aspects of their lives. Still, there are issues that need to be improved. Restricting uploads that contain hateful comments could be a solution. But as this could worsen censorship issues, the details of the restriction, if initiated, should be carefully decided. Some measures could be taken by considering that Everytime, being an anonymous community, is a factor that increases inconsiderate behavior, making it mandatory for users to use their real names, or revealing their user nicknames in posts and comments could improve the situation. To prevent censorship issues, every time the managers of each section should refrain from showing questionable behavior, or at least regularly reveal the details of their actions. But what really matters in the end is whether potential users, namely the readers of this article, are willing to take action and make these changes happen. Every time can and should become a student commodity without the controversies. We Need Snuggles for Our Struggles. University Students and Mental Health by Seung. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was time spent at university. Dickens surely didn't intend this quote to be used in this context, but admittedly it does fit nicely. Campus life seems like a romantic breeze. It's filled with friends, learning, booze, and laughter. Yet behind the smokescreen, countless students are struggling with stress, anxiety, burnout, and depression, just to name a few. The mental health of university students is being compromised, and COVID-19 is only worsening the situation. With the current pandemic going on, more and more students have been struggling with their mental health. Quarantine has kept us from socializing, and with fewer opportunities to get advice and support from friends, students are feeling lonelier and more vulnerable than ever. Online classes are harder to focus on, and schoolwork remains daunting. Students all around the world have been racked with fear and uncertainty. After all, we don't know when this pandemic will end, or if it ever will. Will the rest of our school life be like this? Will the rest of our lives be spent wearing masks? On the other hand, this emergency has resulted in more awareness of the necessity of mental health care. This is not a situation pertaining only to students. The universally dire state of mental health has called people to attention, and schools, companies, as well as governments are scrambling for a solution. Some may ask, why the fuss? What's the big deal about mental health anyway? Why mental health matters. It's easy to turn a blind eye to mental health, especially when mental health problems are not as easy to detect or diagnose as physical ones. However, mental health is every bit as important as physical health, perhaps even more so. When it comes to the human body, a holistic approach is needed. Mental health affects physical health and vice versa. For example, negative feelings such as sorrow may weaken one's immune system. Feelings like anger may heighten blood pressure. So if one's mental health is in a bad state, one may be more susceptible to such negative feelings and physical illnesses. Sheer experience tells us that physical health affects mental health. We feel happier after exercising, and if we catch so much as a common cold, we lose the motivation to do most things. In other words, a sound mind and a sound body go together. So what makes it so hard for university students to maintain their mental health? What struggles do we face? University students' mental health struggles. One major obstacle is the unpredictable future. Students are plagued with worries about their careers and how they are to make a living in the future, while simultaneously doing something that they truly enjoy. It may be thought that SNU students are exempt from these problems. After all, we are considered the cream of the crop, so surely we have it easy, right? Sadly, that is not the case. The economy is not getting better, especially considering how hard it was rocked in the wake of COVID-19. Prospects of finding a job are generally bleak, while technology and society are changing so fast that jobs are coming along and fading away at an alarming rate. Sometimes the anxiety is not about getting a job itself, but what road students want to pursue. Students are conflicted about what they want to do with their lives and how they want to go about doing that. When I think of the future, I just feel so helpless. I don't know what to do with my life. An anonymous student commented on SNU's Every Time. To us, time spent at university seems like a major turning point in our lives, where we will have to make a life-changing decision. No pressure, right? And as if that isn't enough, university life itself entails a constant juggling of duties. Students need to keep up academically. We need to digest lectures, solve problem sets, or write essays, and absorb the knowledge imparted in time for exams. Academic pressure may be tougher on SNU students, who must compete amongst some of the most bright-eyed and bushy-tailed peers in the country. To make it worse, many of us are still set in our high school habits of perfectionism. Some peers feel an obligation to try their best, even though they might not want to. It doesn't help that grades affect potential career options. Many feel that the consequence of failure is high, which increases fear of failure. Besides academic pressure, many students also face additional work stress. Being a university student means facing the prospect of financial independence. We are taking baby steps toward. Add to this the pressure of socializing, and the whole set is complete. We go out and drink with seniors and juniors, knowing nothing yet hoping we don't seem too pretentious or out of our depths. While socializing is a pleasure most of the times, unwanted yet necessary socializing can cause emotional fatigue. Yet, why do university students have it so hard now? Aside from the pandemic, which everyone is going through, what makes university life any harder than it used to be years ago? It could be said that SNS is both the sign of the times and a vine full of lies. SNS has given rise to a culture of superficial glamour. All the world at the inside of our phones is now a stage. Beauty gurus, travel influencers, and Instagram models constantly post perfect pictures, most of which have been edited or taken with a filter. We don't even have to go that far. Even our closest friends post pictures where they look the best. We don't even have to go that far. Even our closest friends post pictures where they look the best. One cannot help comparing oneself to these images of unrealistic perfection. This may lead to decreased self-esteem or feelings of having to prove oneself to the social networking community. An unnamed student on SNU's Everytime remarked, "I often find myself lying on my bed and opening Instagram habitually, even though I end up comparing myself to others and feeling bad about things." In addition, with countless photos of expensive purchases or delicious food, SNS also adds to consumerism, which may increase financial stress for students. SNS is a current phenomenon, but there has always been a question weighing on university students' minds for eons. To put it bluntly, many students wrestle with existential crises. Fresh out of high school, many university students already feel burnt out due to the rigorous competition of the university admissions process. But all too soon, they face the enigmatic task of finding themselves. Many students, especially studious ones like those in SNU, spent most of their high school years occupied with academic pursuits. They may thus feel that their self-awareness leaves much to be desired, although the need for self-discovery is pulling at them incessantly. When I was younger, I thought that people doing anything other than studying were fools. But now, I find that I don't know much about myself, and the only thing I know how to do is studying. I guess I'm the fool now. An anonymous student confessed. Even so, it feels like there is not enough time or freedom for self-discovery, especially during the current pandemic. The strongest characteristic of university life, namely its lack of uniformity, only serves to deepen students' crisis. Up until coming to university, every student was more or less on a similar road. It was easy to look around at one's peers and gauge whether one was ahead or behind. But in university, that uniform road forks into 1,000 different paths. Everyone makes different decisions, and one may walk on a different road, alone and anxious. It is no surprise, therefore, that university students face various mental health problems, although they may vary in severity from person to person. Then, how can we look after our mental health? SNU's mental health care services. Students may turn to SNU's mental health care services in their time of need. The university plays a large role in our daily lives and greatly influences our mental health. Therefore, it only feels right to turn to the school and utilize what resources it may offer. The school club, SNU Mental Care, helps to raise awareness regarding students' mental health and mindfulness. It posts informative and introspective posts on Instagram. Some of these posts inform the viewer about mental health problems, and some encourage the reader to recognize how they feel. The club also partakes in a main project each semester, which usually takes the form of an interactive activity that leads you to reflect on who you are or how you feel. During the current pandemic, the main project is usually available online on a temporary website created by the club. The website walks participants through an interactive story. Participants can click on choices or type in their answers to complete the story. Partaking in such activities or reading the club's Instagram posts can help remind yourself to take care of your mental health. The school also offers counseling for students. While there have been some voices on Every Time criticizing the practicality of school counseling, sometimes having a person to listen to your troubles can be soothing in itself. Also, some students have found counseling to be extremely helpful. So if you have any troubles, counseling certainly seems worth giving a try. The Center for Campus Life and Culture offers one-on-one counseling, which is normally done once every week. Counseling is available in both Korean and English, and the center abides by a strict code of confidentiality. They can be contacted by phone, email, or simple visit to their information desk. The center offers many other programs too, including tests to check on your mental state. If the center feels too daunting, receiving counseling from your college's student counseling center is also an option. Most colleges, the College of Engineering, Social Sciences, Humanities, Natural Sciences, Veterinary Medicine, Business Administration, Education, Agriculture and Life Sciences, and Fine Arts, each have a counseling center. The Yeongun Student Support Center offers its services to students of the College of Medicine, Nursing, and Dentistry. The Kwanok residence halls also offer counseling services for students living in the dorms. Tips for daily mental health care. Yet, even with the school's resources, looking after one's mental health is no easy task, especially when one is a student. After all, our resources are limited, both time-wise and emotionally. Some people may not be able to access school services, and others may prefer not to, for their own reasons. So, here are some tips regarding how you can look after your mental health in your daily life. First, try to be attuned to your feelings and express them more. Ask yourself, how am I feeling today? How do I feel about this particular person or situation? In the midst of our busy, everyday lives, it is all too easy to keep our emotions at bay, or to compartmentalize them because we can't deal with them now. While this may be momentarily effective, in the long run, it is incredibly harmful to bottle up your feelings, especially when they are negative ones. The pressure builds and builds until you can't control your emotions and incur a sudden outburst that you might regret. According to a post from SNU Mental Care, emotions that aren't expressed may accumulate and even lead to stress or depression. Expressing how you feel, whether through voice or other mediums like drawing or writing, is not only cathartic but also helps to regulate overt feelings. These tips are not limited to negative emotions. Savoring happiness and expressing it can result in feelings of thankfulness and fulfillment. Second, look after yourself. Looking after yourself may seem tough, but it seems easier once you incorporate it into your daily routine. Try to abide by a regular schedule. Admittedly, being a university student means that you sometimes skip meals or pull all-nighters, especially when it comes to exams. sometimes the temptation of YouTube or Netflix can be too strong, and you may end up binging until dawn. However, you should try to eat, exercise, and sleep regularly to the best of your abilities. According to Dr. Brad Brenner, co-founder of the therapy group of NYC, healthy routines help to alleviate anxiety and burnout. Thus, routinely keeping your physical self in shape will have a positive effect on your mental health. Also, try to keep yourself in a healthy and supportive environment. Surround yourself with people who love you and those that you love back. They will keep you in a neutral or positive mindset so that you're not too hard on yourself, even when in a bad situation. Third, don't be afraid to take risks for the sake of your mental health. Don't prioritize your relationships or work over yourself. If you feel like you need to give up something for your mental health, don't hesitate. For example, you could take a break from social media, take fewer classes, or take a semester off if you need to. Seek professional help or emotional support from friends and family. End toxic relationships. Do things for the sheer sake of your mental health. University life is not easy, and these hard times during the pandemic are not making things any easier for students' mental health. But no matter what happens, tend to your mental health. Many students hesitate to seek help through counseling or through professional measures out of fear of what others would say if they found out. Though there may be people who think that mental health problems are unnatural and to be avoided, there are hundreds more, including me, who are encouraging and supportive of those who struggle with mental health issues. Besides, don't let others' perceptions of you stop you from getting help if you need it. After all, your health is an important priority. Others' opinions are not. One last time before I conclude, I implore you, please tend to your mental health. I won't say that this is an easy thing to do. I won't say that I've been there or that I understand. I'm not sure if I can say so because everyone's struggle is different. The one thing I can say for sure, however, is that you're worth every ounce of care that you put into yourself. I believe the mental health care encompasses a great many things, from creating a comforting, healthy routine to seeking out professional help. Whether they are big steps or small ones, there will always be a step available to take for yourself. And if you can start anywhere, at any time, why not start now?
Exchange students are not the only international part of SNU. My experience as a member of the SNU International Student Association by Tanya Ka. Everyone knows that there is a regular student association at Seoul National University. However, did you know that there is also a student organization that represents international students of our beloved school called CISA? Every semester, CISA has been responsible for carrying out this exciting task. Read on below to learn more about this amazing organization. What is CISA? CISA is abbreviation for the SNU International Student Association. Unlike other school organizations and associations, CISA, being founded in March 2007, is a relatively young body of the SNU community. But this does not mean that CISA lacks experience or professionalism. Under the supervision of the faculty staff of the OIA, Office of International Affairs, CISA is a highly active and diverse organization run by 9 international students from 9 different countries. CISA's ultimate goal is to be comprehended by students as an organization that offers help in many different aspects of campus life, whether it is about academics, lifestyle, or networking. In addition, CISA cares a lot about SNU students' mental health and welfare, which is why you can always rely on CISA when it comes to discrimination, bullying, or academic pressure you may have experienced. How do you become a CISA member? To become a part of CISA's executive team, international students have to successfully undergo a pre-screening process based on applications and then interview procedures conducted by existing executive members. CISA strives to recruit members from different countries and continents. For instance, the 9 current members of CISA are from India, Morocco, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Tunisia, Pakistan, Vietnam, Nepal, and Iran. This in turn provides CISA with the opportunity to effectively reach out to different communities of SNU. Is there anything for Koreans in CISA? Although Korean students cannot officially join the executive working team of CISA, they are always welcome to participate in their internship program, which is designed for students who are willing to help CISA members improve international students' life and are excited about gaining a multicultural experience. Moreover, there are no limitations or restrictions for Korean students to join events organized by CISA. In fact, full-time and exchange students are all highly welcome to join every single activity CISA organizes, which will be explained more in detail in the next section. CISA is not just an information point. It is true that one of the main responsibilities of CISA is providing information about SNU. However, CISA's responsibilities are not limited to being an information point. Every semester, CISA holds many events, both online and offline, which are organized to unite international students of SNU into one strong community. Some events are conducted during the year regularly by the Welcoming Party, which is designed to welcome all newly enrolled students and to congratulate them on their entrance. International food festivals are designed to share the culture and traditional food of different countries. Lastly, New Year Eve party events are organized to celebrate the new year with peers and have fun. Insights from a CISA member. Why CISA? Is a basic question that every applying student is asked while being interviewed. In this article, I, as an active CISA member, would love to give you my answer to that question so that you can fully grasp how it feels like to be a part of a multinational team that generates all the official international activities for SNU students. I met CISA for the first time in 2019 during a welcoming party. I was a freshman who barely knew anyone on campus and had no idea how our school operated, where to eat, where to go, and who to ask. This party brought me to meet people who are now my best friends. Back then, I was already grateful to the CISA team for sacrificing their time and efforts to give us an opportunity to bond with other students, have fun during the semester, and relieve some stress. From the time when I was the Prime Minister of the Student Association of my high school, I always had the dream of joining my future university student association as well. Coming to the welcoming party reminded me of this dream, and that was the moment when I decided to become a CISA member and do my best to improve the life of the international community at SNU. Since almost every semester CISA recruits new members to join the team, the CISA executive team changes at least every year. Old members leave and new members come. This is how I was able to meet 3 different CISA teams. I met the first team during my freshman and sophomore years. In fall 2019, I actively participated in various CISA events like the Welcoming Party, New Year Party, Fall Festival in the dormitory, and the International Food Festival. They helped me to absorb actions that had to be taken to help CISA thrive even more. Then in fall 2020, I entered CISA's internship program for 1 semester, where I met the second CISA team. As an intern, my tasks mostly were to analyze the current situation of CISA. That being said, CISA has many departments, namely PR, design, communication, IT, and administration. Making analysis included providing an overview for each department's work, strong points, weaknesses, improvements, and progress. Executive members expect to receive a subjective opinion of an outsider who at the same time sees how the inside work was being done. I truly believe an internship program helps one to become a more dedicated and well-rounded future executive member of CISA. And last but not least, I met the third team of CISA in the 2021 spring, which I'm still working with to this moment. During the semester, becoming an official executive member of CISA took all things to a new level. There's no I in the word team. This is another well-known yet simple truth when it comes to working with people. As I have mentioned earlier, I managed to absorb the working process of 3 different CISA teams. The last one is the team I'm working with right now. When our CISA team was built, it consisted of 9 members, 7 of which were new members who had never worked together. We all met each other for the first time. Depending on each member's attitude, this situation could either become the brightest or the most painful memory. Fortunately, we managed to turn this challenge into a chance. How? By using the title of this paragraph. Being a team player does not mean doing your best to make your opinion or ideas get approved. It means doing your best to inspire all members to come up with the best idea possible. To achieve that, we didn't just blindly delegate tasks, but rather communicated actively and asked each other for help. CISA has taught me 3 important yet simple life lessons, one of which is that giving is better than taking. As humans, we all tend to like receiving anything good from people rather than giving, let it be love, care, attention, or gifts. If we combine this with the fact that we are international students that make up a very small part of the SNU community, receiving any kind of attention and care gives birth to a fountain of bright emotions and joy. While working as a member of CISA, my point of view has moved to creating something and putting efforts for other people feels a lot better than taking what was done for me. Every time we start preparing for events, we try to come up with new ideas, new types of gifts, games, scenarios, and anything else that can make our students' days at least a little bit funnier and happier. At this point, I stopped thinking about my needs and what I like, but give students what they want and need. New normal? Create your own new normal. COVID-19 and social distancing regulations were the most difficult challenge for the CISA team of 2020. And even after 2 years, the pandemic is still forcing us to think outside the box over and over every time we prepare a new event. Before the pandemic, CISA's main advantage was in holding events offline. CISA would gather students all together in one place and create comfortable conditions for them by providing food, playing games, and exchanging experiences. However, maintaining interesting, useful, and valuable types of communication among students became a very complicated and complex process during COVID-19. If stressed and overworked students are not willing to join online classes, what can we say about getting them to join online events, especially where there's no food? Before the pandemic, hundreds of international and Korean students would join offline CISA events. However, this past 2 years, we have been happy to see 40 to 50 people joining us. That is why this keeps us focused to be creative all the time. When the pandemic came, we had to merge the main goal of our events, which is to help people bond with each other by doing something together, with the new conditions of the online lifestyle. This is how one of the most successful online events, called Roll with CISA, Do-It-Yourself Gimbap, was created. Members of CISA found simple DIY gimbap sets, which were safely distributed among the participants before the event. Then on the actual day of the event, CISA members and SNU students met online through Zoom. The online system allowed the participants to be in the safety of their own houses with their kitchen appliances. I believe this was one of the strongest points of this event. Also, for students who could not join the event on time, we created a live session on our CISA Instagram page so that they could join at any time they wanted. As was expected, we received a lot of positive feedback not only about the live session, but about the event itself. This in turn helped us to go farther in the right direction of event making during the pandemic. Last words from Tanya. Working in CISA definitely has made me a better person in aspects such as professionalism, creativity, teamwork, personal growth, and even humor. Becoming an official part of Seoul National University has been my dream forever, and I can surely say that this dream has become true thanks to CISA. Every event, meeting, or activity that CISA held has gone deeply through my heart and soul. I love my university and I value seeing other people happy about studying here as well. I believe no one can understand a student rather than another student. Therefore, we are here to understand you, to hear your voice, to help you, and to make your day better. Breaking Ground. Meet Professor Jisoo Hwang, the first female economics professor at the College of Liberal Studies. By Eugene Kim. What does it feel like to be the first full-time female economics professor at the College of Liberal Studies? This is a question that has always followed Professor Hwang, who is the newest addition to the CLS, College of Liberal Studies, faculty at Seoul National University. However, it doesn't necessarily faze her when it is asked for the millionth time. When asked if she ever gets tired of the question, she laughs and thinks for a while. I would describe my reaction as mixed, she answers. On the one hand, it's true that I do have a responsibility as being the only female professor yet. In a previous interview with the CLS Student Ambassador Group Sena, she had mentioned the role model effect, a concept used to express how seeing women in positions of power can persuade younger generations to be more ambitious. I ask if this has anything to do with her answer, and if she ever feels unnecessarily pressured. It's a reason for me to work harder, she answers, but it's true that sometimes I just want to be seen as just another economics professor. Professor Hwang, whose academic credential boasts a PhD in economics at Harvard University and a BA at economics at Seoul National University, with the addition of a career at the Bank of Korea, Economics Research Institute doesn't seem the type to be fazed by things in general. Her path to becoming a professor at SNU CLS proves this to be true. After choosing a major in economics, Beck and you had to choose a major after being accepted into the College of Social Sciences. She decided to pursue a PhD abroad when it was more common to first finish a master's domestically. She checked out as many classes as possible in every research area that was offered at Harvard Economics and met Professor Claudia Golden, the leading figure in historical research for women's role in the U.S. economy. After meeting Professor Golden, it became clearer that she wanted to do. Despite being offered a position at Hong Kong University, she declined and decided to focus on research about her home ground at the Bank of Korea. I wanted to focus on what was happening in Korea, she says. The fact that she had lived most of her life outside Korea only made her zoom in on the eccentrics of the Korean economy. As a nation, Korea changed drastically in such a short period of time, she says. With her specialty in applied microeconomics, she published a working paper with the IMF stating possible reforms in the labor market area to foster growth and spent 7 years at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies as a professor in the Department of International Economics and Law before joining SNU. However, the meet and greet of coming to the present wasn't necessarily all sunshine and rainbows. She describes her time at Harvard using the Korean expression, bashing your head against the ground. I had to start from scratch, essentially, she says. I went in without setting any limits as to what I wanted to learn or what I wanted to do. While this allowed her to keep an open mind and explore the variety of the finest research areas that Harvard Economics had to offer, it also meant that there was a lot of catching up to do alone. It was a lonely experience, she recalls. If she hadn't loved economics so much, it would have been extremely hard to bear. She corrects me, though, when I ask if it was the lack of human contact that was the most difficult to bear. At graduate level research, even if you meet your fellow researchers, it's essentially a battle with your research and yourself, she says. No one can necessarily help you with that. so you have to be able to enjoy it if you want to pursue a career in that direction. What would it take to be an economics researcher today, then especially for those who seek to pursue a PhD abroad like Professor Huang? She answers first by saying that things have changed a lot since 2013. A lot of students who are planning to become economics researchers these days are a lot more focused and educated in the area of research they want to pursue. She points out that a lot of students today educate themselves beforehand and tend to focus on honing specific analytical skills at an undergraduate level early on. When asked if she thinks this is the way to go, she doesn't necessarily say this is a bad thing. I would encourage them to keep an open mind, however, she answers. What you encounter at the graduate level may not be what you expected when you were an undergraduate. Especially if you're planning to study abroad, she advises keeping away from becoming too close-minded about what you want to research or what you want to do. If we are talking about career choices in general, you won't know what's right for you unless you experience it first, she says. A few casual questions are also sprinkled throughout the interview. What was the sex ratio of students back then in the economics major? What was the sex ratio of students back then in the economics major? How does it feel to come back to SNU as an alumnus and a professor? Does it feel strange to spend the first year as a professor at SNU only through emails, Zoom calls, and ETL? During many time as the undergraduate student at SNU, there already was a substantial number of female students in economics, she answers. On the lack of female professors in economics, she gives a similar answer to other female professors in predominantly male disciplines. That with time, the department will soon reflect the increase in female researchers. Until that time, however, she will do her best to be a good role model and educator. On coming back to SNU, she says, "It's fun to see buildings I've taken classes in and see how little has changed after so many years. However, some changes are noticeable. The building that is currently being used by the College of Liberal Studies, for example, is a new addition." On the question about COVID, she answers, "I do get to see students' faces though, albeit with masks on, and I do my best to communicate through what is available." Will she be able to identify them if they attended class in person? She laughs and answers that it might be a bit difficult. With that, and with a few words of gratitude, the interview draws to a close. Due to COVID-19, Professor Huang's time at the College of Liberal Studies as of now has been a quiet one. However, her footsteps as the first full-time female economics professor at CLS, as well as the first applied microeconomics professor, have spoken volumes. Already her classes have garnered popularity among students that have been searching for economics classes that reflect the free spirit and interdisciplinary nature offered at the College of Liberal Studies. While both her field and presence as the first female full-time professor is a new one, it hopefully won't be the last in a field as dynamic as economics or any male-dominated field for that matter. Although it would be difficult to find a person who doesn't have a clue of what an economics major does, not many would be familiar with applied microeconomics, Professor Huang's specialty. Currently, the only professor who teaches applied microeconomics at the undergraduate level at CLS, her classes opened under Selected Topic Seminar 4, aim to introduce students to the world of applied microeconomics research without being too overbearing. Let us get to know the field better with a few questions. Question 1. Could you summarize what applied microeconomics is for students who might not be familiar with the subject? Professor Huang. Applied microeconomics is an area of economics that applies the framework developed by traditional microeconomics, which focuses on the choices of the individual and household to various areas. The topics can vary from labor, population, education, and even to fields outside of economics such as environmental studies or public health. It relies heavily on data to test those hypotheses, though, so there's a lot of data analysis involved. Question 2. Are there any other prominent topics in applied microeconomics that students might be interested in, other than the wage gap? Professor Huang. Of course. Applied microeconomics is a very comprehensive field. There's labor on the one hand, which deals with issues such as family and career choices, low fertility, and low marriage rates. But health economics, development economics, population economics, and environmental economics are also part of applied microeconomics. Question 3. Does applied microeconomics make use of a lot of statistics or coding? If so, would you recommend taking additional classes in computer science or statistics? Professor Huang. It does require fluency in using statistical models and some computer skills. However, the basic approach is a bit different from statistics. The focus of statistics is to develop general methodologies. However, in applied microeconomics, we are usually interested in estimating causal effects. So you need background knowledge on social and historical context as well as data that is available in order to find creative ways to talk about causalities. Of course, the microeconomics insight that we use to analyze and interpret the results is also a major difference. As for taking additional classes, since at the undergraduate level what is offered is the basics, I would say focus on those first. Econometrics would be the absolute basic. If you want, taking additional coding courses in other majors would be helpful, since those courses would allow you to develop a sense of what it means to actually use data. Question 4. Do you have any last words for students interested in studying applied microeconomics? Professor Huang. This isn't necessarily limited to just economics students, but I want to tell students to be honest with yourself. You're probably going to spend the rest of your life based on the choices you make now, so find out what you really like.
The Arts and Culture section, where discussions on cultural trends and art in any shape or form find a home. Secondhand becomes a lifestyle for the MZ generation, by Bo-kyung Kim. A phone rings in the subway and the phone owner immediately opens an app with a carrot icon. Is this some new chatting app? Not at all. This is Tangam Market, a mobile marketplace for users to buy and sell secondhand goods to people in their neighborhood. Starting from offline secondhand shops to online thrifting and market platforms, secondhand is becoming a part of everyday consumption. The secondhand market is made of people selling and purchasing used goods. This started from casual transactions within the community and grew to larger flea markets. Korea's most popular flea market is probably the Dongmyo Flea Market located at Jongno, Seoul. Here, there is a wide array of old vintage goods ranging from apparel to books, LP, electronics, furniture, and much more. People usually come here to thrift vintage clothes or to buy rare and unique items. Today, the second-hand market takes on a slightly different look. Although Dongmyo and other online thrift and vintage stores are still in demand, people now have different online platforms that lessen the need to actually go through the stores in person. Korea's second-hand market today consists of 3 major platforms: Tangam Market, 중고나라, and 번개장터. Created in 2003, 중고나라 is basically the pioneer of the online second-hand market in Korea and has a staggering number of 21 million users. 중고나라 is different from the other two in that it is mainly a web-based service on Naver Cafe, while the other two are mobile applications. Nonetheless, the process of buying and selling is rather similar for all 3 services. The seller takes pictures of the goods they are willing to sell and posts them on the platform. The buyer then browses through the platform using the search key and contacts the seller when choosing to purchase an item. When the deal is set, the goods can be sent through a post box or exchanged in person. 번장 and 당근's difference is that there isn't a geographical limit in 번장, while 당근 only shows items from people in your close geographical boundary. With the rise of such online platforms and people spending more time at home or online due to COVID-19, the second-hand market is going through steep growth. Specifically, the market size grew 500% from 4 trillion won in 2008 to 20 trillion won in 2021. As such, secondhand is a big trend worldwide, but it is the MZ generation that is especially involved in the trend. MZ generation refers to the group of people including the millennials born 1981 to 1996 and the Generation Z born 1997 to 2012. Representing the similarities and tendencies of young adults in our society, the MZ generation is a crucial consumer target for many brands. The MZ generation takes part in the second-hand market in almost all possible ways. Visiting Dongmyo Flea Market vlog or Dongmyo Hall are popular contents on YouTube, and it's easy to see vintage second-hand clothing shops in trendy areas such as Garosu-gil or Hongdae. As for second-hand online platforms, the generation makes up nearly 50% of all users. There would be many reasons as to why second-hand is so popular to the MZ generation. Some major reasons include how second-hand consumption touches their values and consumption patterns as listed below. 1. Modes of self-expression. A big characteristic of the MZ generation is that they don't only consume goods that are a basic necessity, but enjoy consuming goods that can be used to express themselves and reflect their interests. Secondhand markets expose the MZ generation to vintage and unique goods that are usually not offered in shopping malls. While Dongmyo Flea Market is most famous today for vintage clothing, one can also find unique soldier helmets from famous wars, old collection cards, or even rare Macintosh prototypes. Although the offered items are less unique and are less old compared to Dongmyo, online secondhand platforms are also a good option to search for unique and valuable goods. Generally, Dongmyo is seen as a shopping paradise for the MZ generation with very distinctive styles or collectible interests, while online platforms are enjoyed by the MZ generation willing to buy limited offering goods or classic goods. Also, the easiest way of showing one's image comes from their physical appearance. Thus, clothing is a big factor of self-expression, and the MZ generation are key customers of fast fashion. Through the second-hand market, the MZ generation can enjoy consuming new clothes, but feel less financial burden by selling their clothes after each season. A recent interview was conducted with an SNU student who used Tangun on a regular basis. I use Tangun often because my clothing preference changes frequently, and I've rarely worn the clothes sitting in my closet all the time. I sell these through the app and use the money earned to buy new clothes that match my new preference, Alice Choi, a heavy user of Tangun, said. Hence, the second-hand market works in both ways regarding means of self-expression. For the buyer, in this case the MZ generation, the diversity of items and style only found in second-hand markets provide a greater pool to search from. As for the seller, the second-hand market reduces the financial burden for the MZ generation by allowing them to buy items that help set up their desired image and sell it when they want another item or have a change in style. 2. A way to get your hands on those luxury goods. MZ generation enjoy buying goods that they can boast on their SNUS, but don't have the financial capability to purchase them in most cases. Naturally, the generation also values 가성비, a term to indicate a purchase in which the quality of the product exceeds the cost paid in order to obtain it. Almost all goods are sold at a cheaper price than usual when it is secondhand, including luxury items such as Chanel bags or Burberry coats. These luxuries are available in Dongmyo or offline vintage stores, but online secondhand platforms are more preferred because they provide accessibility to much more items at varying costs. Buyers can thus compare different items and the 가성비 easily and pick the one to purchase. For instance, the Lady Dior bag costs 6.5 million Korean won when bought from the official site. In Tangun, however, it costs an average of 3.5 million and ranges from 1.5 million to 5 million. The same items are usually sold at a cheaper price if they are stains or bought a few years back, and sold at a higher price if they are relatively new and in use. Hence, the online secondhand platform gives the buyer a chance to compare and choose the price to pay. According to Lotte Members' 2020 report, 45% of the luxury consumers in their 20s have made their purchase from secondhand. Of these, online communities and online secondhand platforms consisted of 83% of the total transactions. As such, the secondhand market matches the MZ generation's desire to buy luxury items and assists their search for 가성비. 3. Consciousness of the environment and values in upcycling. The MZ generation is also referred to as a generation that cares a lot about the environment. Due to increased environmental awareness and education, many young adults are knowledgeable of such issues going on around the world and believe in taking part for a change. Naturally, it has almost become a necessity for brands to enforce sustainability and environmental consciousness in their brand messages targeted to the MZ generation. Yet, there's a limit in brands as their main objective is to sell their product and make profit, which creates waste when producing and getting rid of products. This irony is especially reflected in the fast fashion market. Thus, a better option for the environmentally conscious MZ generation is to make use of the secondhand market. Through secondhand transactions, items are transferred from users who do not want the items anymore to users who want them. This is a sustainable way to consume goods that are prone to quick change in trend, such as clothes. It has been reported that the most sold secondhand good category is apparel. The MZ generation can satisfy their environmental consciousness through upcycling products on secondhand platforms. The secondhand marketplace is essentially a win-win situation since the seller earns money by selling items and the buyer saves money by buying items at a discounted price. Of the different ways of purchasing secondhand goods, the biggest advantage of the online secondhand platform compared to the traditional offline shops or flea markets is that it is much more accessible when buyers or sellers reach a wider community. Although such merits can be attractive to all age groups, we can see that the MZ generation uses the secondhand market for even more reasons, including their value in self-expression, desire for affordable luxuries, and willingness to care for the environment. Secondhand goods are no longer considered as something worse off than the actual goods paid at a normal price. This is surely contrasted with the preceding views of secondhand goods, which were that they are dirty or sold for a reason. For the MZ generation, secondhand goods are not old throwaways, but instead a new and classy vintage style that can be used to reflect who they are. OTT Service Market in Korea, The Present and the Future, by Jimin Woo. Squid Game is everywhere. Netflix has officially announced that more than 142 million member households have chosen to watch the series in the first 4 weeks, and it has become the most popular show Netflix has ever made. Squid Game's popularity was once again assured this Halloween, when thousands of people worldwide were out on the streets dressed in the green and red costumes from the show. At the very base of Squid Game's massive hit, there was COVID-19. As many blockbuster movies have postponed their release dates and going to the theater was regarded as vulnerable to infection, numerous people chose to subscribe to over-the-top services to watch video content conveniently and safely. It was a global phenomenon. Statistics prove the user explosion of OTT services occurred in Korea without exception. In February 2021, the number of monthly users of Netflix in Korea was 10,013,283, exceeding double the number in January 2020. And at the same time, other domestic services like Wave, TVing, and Watcha have succeeded in maintaining their subscriber numbers despite Netflix's growing share. Changes in leisure time and consumption patterns. The rise of OTT services brought significant changes in the lifestyle of millennials and Generation Z. These days, some young adults book a hotel room to watch a new Netflix series while chatting with their friends rather than going to the theater. People prefer this way since their privacy is guaranteed. They can freely show and share their reactions with their friends. When it's difficult to schedule a meeting in person, the MZ generation uses the teleparty function in Netflix or Group Watch in Disney Plus to watch the same video simultaneously with friends and family in their respective houses. People can even send emoji reactions or messages to express their feelings on these OTT platforms. OTT services have also brought a new form of human contact and relations in the MZ generation. Since most services allow 4 people to share an account, many people find others to subscribe together in order to lower their expenses to 1/4. When their friends or family cannot be their members, they look for people via internet communities. For instance, when Disney Plus started streaming last November 12th, numerous posts on Everytime, an online community for college students, and Tangan Market, an online secondhand market, were uploaded for the purpose of finding members. Each recruitment was quickly occupied. Although this kind of human relation is superficial in many cases, the MZ generation seemingly forms such contracts with strangers without much distrust. OTT service as an opportunity for Korea. In this era of globalization, OTT services certainly provide tremendous opportunities for the Korean entertainment industry. In the past, it was difficult for foreigners to watch newly released Korean movies. Korean movies were not welcomed in foreign theaters since foreigners did not have enough interest in Korean content to pay for the ticket. But things have changed. Along with a global interest in Korean content, thanks to the work of BTS, Bang Joon-ho, Yoon Yo-jong, and many other Korean artists, Squid Game could gain its high popularity primarily because it was released via Netflix. Netflix users do not have to pay additional costs to watch Squid Game or any other Korean content. Accessibility to Korean movies and dramas has never been higher than today. As the status and profitability of Korean content skyrocketed, many OTT services are trying to make the second Squid Game. Disney Plus, for example, is currently working on a Korean action hero thriller series, Moving, based on the webtoon of the same title created by Kang Full. This series about 3 teenagers discovering their unusual powers is eagerly anticipated by the public and critics for its cast of Cho In-sung, Yoo Seung-young, Han Hyo-joo, etc., and its production costs exceeding $40 million. Successful original Korean content will differentiate the service from other competing OTT services and therefore contribute to absorbing new subscribers and prevent original users from canceling their subscription. The negative sides of OTT services. The new phenomenon of films being released via OTT services was beneficial to Korean movies, but at the same time it also brought financial damage to the theaters. Some blockbuster movies, including Red Notice, are exclusively available on major OTT services like Netflix and Disney+, and more producers are producing and releasing their movies through OTT services for its high profitability. Theaters had to inevitably share their sales with OTT services as the quality and demand of original content of OTT services has continuously risen. Theaters should work on countermeasures. In order to confront the expansion of OTT services, theaters would have to appeal to the public why going to the theater is more memorable and special compared to watching a movie at home. Actors can also face economic damages because of the changed method of movie release. Watching a movie via OTT services brings less profit to actors than the conventional way of watching movies in the theater. For this reason, American actress Scarlett Johansson filed a lawsuit against Disney over their decision to stream Black Widow, the film she played as the protagonist, on Disney Plus while simultaneously releasing it in theaters. Johansson claimed that Disney's arbitrary move cost her a significant cut of the box office. Streaming a new film via OTT services also makes the film vulnerable to illegal sharing. It gets much easier for people to obtain movie files of good quality, causing financial disadvantages to filmmakers, including actors, and tempting more people to make immoral actions. This type of damage is relatively uncommon in Korea, but Korea's OTT market is not immune to all of these problems, therefore caution is always needed. Conclusion: do not cross the line. Most of the OTT users in Korea are subscribing to multiple services. According to a report by Korea Consumer Agency, the KCA, announced last June, 54.6% of the consumers replied that they are using 2 or more OTT services. Since Disney Plus was not available back then, as it was launched in Korea this November, we can assume that the percentage would have been increased by now. Each OTT service has its original content, and it is undeniable that the more you subscribe, there are more entertaining contents you can watch. But we should always acknowledge that there is a need to selectively watch content. There is a famous meme in which a person's 4 limbs and head are on the verge of getting ripped apart because he is trying to additionally subscribe to Disney Plus when he is already using Netflix, TVing, Watcha, and Laughdle. The meme, of course, means that when a person persists in subscribing to OTT services beyond the level he or she can afford, the person would face financial trouble. It can also be interpreted that if you watch all the fun content accessible in your OTT services, you wouldn't have enough time to do productive activities. The abundance of video content does not mean that you have to check all of them out. It would be appropriate to subscribe to OTT services that you can handle regarding your economic situation and be a sensible consumer who can spend a moderate amount of time watching OTT content.
Edition boom in Korea. Why are we competing? By Haejun Min. Walking in step with the outstanding in advance of everything, it is extremely normal to deal with daily agonies and worries. It is no surprise that people confront unexpected and hard situations, and yes, mainly it would be about competing towards something. Especially in South Korea, where everyone gets highly attentive about education and universities, competition and conflicts have always been there. They lie right behind us. The thing we have to ask ourselves is, are we enduring this tension properly? It is somewhat common to encounter our friends falling behind their peers and the world calling them losers. Maybe people study, work, and compete so hard not to be labeled as such, but it is time to doubt and reconsider profoundly why we are competing. Surely the sole purpose of life can't be competition. So why are we competing? Nowadays, the answer lies inside television. Here is the point. What do we relish and savor through TV? What kind of messages do dramas, comedies, movies, and talk shows broadcasted on TV usually give us? People have grown tired of banal stories listed on copious channels, love stories, action, celebrities flaunting, and all those cliches. Amid emerging needs toward insightful and fresh ideas on television, a new program was aired in South Korea, a program that gained the spotlight with a key weapon: competition. The prime element. No more trite scripts shall be on show. To stand out vividly among numerous programs, what Korean producers chose was competition. They tenaciously captured the naked sense of rivalry innate in humankind and boldly exposed it with high-skilled editing. Undue competition and conflicts have brought a refreshing jolt to the audiences. Competitive situations came as realistic, and many audiences started getting interested in those programs. This was a natural result since people are surrounded by numerous competition in real life, and broadcasting these realistic aspects of our lives may seem rather appealing. Eventually, Korea's television set about various audition programs, auditions to be selected as K-pop celebrities, singers, and so on. However, programs have been the bone of contention because specific scenes depicted immoderate emotions, and because of those controversies, many participants of audition programs have suffered from malicious comments on the internet. Moreover, one audition program which highly received attention from both trainees and audiences has been exposed that the producers had deceived both the audiences and participants and manipulated the vote results. These unfortunate situations were due to the pressure of the producers. They might have been stressing themselves to meet the expectation caused by the booming attention and excessive support toward the audition programs. Nevertheless, despite many drawbacks of competition on TV, we are still witnessing a lot of types of competition. This means that the element of competing in and of itself is in fact the prime element of television programs. Now we can come up with another question. What makes such competition so appealing? What does competition bring to us? Why are people so gratified with auditions and competitions? Street Woman Fighter, illuminating the true identities. To understand the connection of competition and illuminating one's true identities, it is essential to skim through South Korea's television culture, which mainly evolves around competition. Street Woman Fighter 2021 might show what exactly people earn from such a tense atmosphere. This TV show is on the zenith of popularity, and so many people are enthusiastic about the whole plot. The fundamental element of the program is a dance battle among 8 dance teams: Holy Bang, Hook, La Chica, Cocoa and Butter, YGX, Proudman, Want, and Way B. All of the participants except one member were professional women dancers, and to gain the first place they had to go through several missions during the span of 2 months. The structure of the program follows any other audition show. The participants compete in a dance battle, the judges decide which side wins, and the team with the lowest score is eliminated. It is a survival. However, not only were competitive moments highlighted in this show, but also the fact that it addressed an unpopular profession was very fascinating. In South Korea, having a profession as a dancer was conventionally not promising, and that people thought dancers as back dancers who only exist for singers and musicians on the stage. The word back dancer was decidedly more widely used, and it indicated the status of dancers. Few parents wanted their child to grow as dancers because in their perspective, dancers were just sidekicks. Maybe there were less chances for dancers to really show people what they are doing and where their job is headed to, but still they weren't able to get attention. Street Woman Fighter showed diverse, spectacular aspects of dancers by showing them competing with each other with actual dancing skills. Whether it be professionals or laypersons, the audience in general all became astonished by their powerful movements. The program offered a new breakthrough for the crowd to acknowledge the dancers. With exciting edits and songs, even the outsiders were able to enjoy the dance, and this was possible because the producers intentionally made narrativity imminent among the dancers. One example of a well-made narrativity with a Street Woman Fighter was that they showed 2 rival dancers, Honey J and Rahi, who were in the same dance team but later separated due to frequent conflicts, and unsurprisingly, the audiences quickly showed interest in their relationship. At first, the 2 dancers seemed to loathe each other, but later they buried the hatchet and became friends again by dancing. This narrativity is not strange, but so natural and heartwarming. In other words, Street Woman Fighter was able to succeed by properly integrating a narrative between the contestants, which consequently made the dancing scene more interesting and noticeable to the world. Moreover, by exposing their stories and making the dancers dance all together, audiences were able to realize the real identity of the dancers. Separated from the old notions such as back dancers, the crowd started to recognize the essence and enthusiasm endeavored in dancing. Especially, just like mentioned above, during the battle between dancer Honey J and Rahi, Audiences found out that some of the movements of two dancers were exactly the same. Everybody was astonished by their coincided gestures, and through this scene, the genre of girls' hip-hop became famous, and other dancers also have commented that the two dancers showed important elements of the dance scene. In this sense, it is very obvious that the world started to recognize who the dancers are and what their identities are. During the whole program, it was surely heartwarming to watch the dancers remind the audience the true intentions and meaning of dancing. Competition used to acquire people's interest because it was just exciting to watch people struggle. Yet, after witnessing Street Woman Fighter, we can now finally find out why people are competing. It is because you can really show yourself by going through competition. Competition has an ability to highlight the backstage of our viewpoint. Just like the dancers freely express their identity through tough missions, others can also find and show people who they really are by competing. Compete and show who you are. Now audition programs are truly the main trend of television programs in South Korea, dealing with other participants in various genres. Trap music, rap, and K-pop idols are growing in popularity thanks to the competition. The comic nature of them is that before the program, people didn't even try to know where they were heading to and why they were so desperate about their goals. Now through competition programs, non-experts also acquired a chance to run their eyes through others' lives, and some acquired a chance to advance their career even more. Nowadays, it is quite easy to lose one's identity and follow the trend since uniformity became too justifiable. In addition, among that uniformity, competition has now become inevitable. Not only do we compete with our peers, but also the bigger part of society, and we sometimes want to get rid of all these tense situations. However, why don't you change your perspective just a bit and see what you've been achieving through the competition? Yes, if you look back the way you have been going through, you may find 1,000 versions of yourself struggling for the better. Just like the dancers from Street Woman Fighter were able to remind themselves of their own goals and passions towards their professions, whenever you grow tired of seemingly endless competitions, just chill for a while and look at what you have achieved through all these tough steps. The reason you chose your own way and the reason you're walking on the center of tense competition lies right on yourself. Don't forget that one drop of courage and passion you have poured on your way. These drops may be gathering, and one day, the day to show who you are and what you've been doing will come. Every person in the world is making their own one drops, and competition is just one of those missions to get it. This is why we are fanatics of competition. This is why we compete. Through numerous competitions, we can find our own identity to let the world recognize who we are and what we are doing. Now, South Korea is surely competing enthusiastically. South Koreans are showing who they are. An Eerie Silence in Korea's Universities by Do-hyun Park. A telling joke that recently made the rounds in Seoul claimed that a man willing to talk politics on the first date is not a man worth seeing. This seems to be the prevailing view among young Korean adults, and not just about romance of men. Korean students are unwilling or uneager to speak their political opinions among themselves. When asked, most students thought that it was rather socially unacceptable or even rude to voice political opinions even among friends. Airing political views is a social faux pas. Even when social inhibitions are muted by alcohol, politics is a rare topic in friendly gatherings. When pressed further for an explanation, an SNU student answered that there was no reason to risk agitating friendships just for the sake of talking politics. A common refrain is "why would I?" followed by an awkward look, as if to gauge the intention of asking such a question. A large array of online discussions regarding politics and quasi-anonymous online websites suggest that the problem isn't that Korean young adults are uninterested in politics. Then what is the issue? Why don't they air their views in public? This is a difference that cannot just be explained away by age, human tendency, or culture. To begin with, it is true that minority opinions are often stifled in public discourse. People are unwilling and often unable to voice unpopular opinions for fear of being ostracized. People naturally shy away from overt hate speech or obvious displays of racism, for example. However, what is notable about young Korean adults is that even popular opinions are not aired in the open. A foreign instructor of college English at Seoul National University mentioned that he once asked his opinion about their opinions on the incumbent president. The students, he said, avoided opening their political opinions, but rather commented on the president's style or manner of speaking. He felt that this was a way of skirting controversy or any meaningful political discussion. Likewise, whichever side of the political spectrum they are on, young Korean adults often stay silent. That is not to say rallies supporting or opposing the government are both devoid of youngsters. It is just that they seem less keen to participate in such activities. It is true that those in Eastern cultures are less willing to engage in debates, be it political or otherwise, as members of Eastern cultures more often believe clashing opinions to be uncourteous. However, the eagerness with which members of the older generation speak of their political views, both in public and private arenas, also discounts the idea that the difference can be attributed solely to culture. Pastors from Christian universities have complained that while their students were willing to voice their religious views, they fell silent when the pastors tried to direct the discussion to political issues. Older Koreans often claim that while they were on the forefront of political change during their youth, the Koreans of this generation are not as easily mobilized on political issues. On the other side, multiple students complain that professors overly politicize their lectures. "I want to learn, not engage in frivolous debates," claimed one. To the students, it seems that voicing political views is not appropriate in the public arena, nor do the majority of them enjoy political debate. Finally, this is not a generational matter either. Exchange students who are curious about the political atmosphere of South Korean campuses are usually surprised by the lack of it. Young foreigners, usually from Western Europe or the United States, are puzzled at the lack of the exchange of political views. Indeed, one person from Germany put it this way: asking a person outright who he or she was going to vote for might be bad social manners. However, lively discussions among close friends and acquaintances were commonplace and often regularly held. Likewise, complaining about the current or former president and opining about his methods was a regular on-campus occurrence for United States students. Talking about social issues such as gender equality or vegetarianism and moving away from factory farming was also rare compared to that of Europe. Thus, whatever it is, there seems to be a defining characteristic of young Korean adults, one that leads them to be quieter about politics. Some people point the finger of blame on the polarization of politics, even among young adults. As messages from each side of the spectrum become more and more aggressive, young Koreans are unwilling to contaminate their relationships with such discourse. Asian cultures are less tuned to argumentative debate and lively exchanges of opinions. Compared to previous generations, this generation has diverse views in politics, which leads them to shy away from discussing the topic altogether. With similar views in politics, peers could simply concur with one another and have politics as a topic of discussion. With a diverse palette to choose from, merely bringing up the topic is uncomfortable. Others claim that as political issues mix with gender identity, and the perennial bugbear of Korean males, military service, talking about such issues leads to an impasse rather than to a productive debate. This means that in order to keep needless disputes away, youth stay silent, with both sides of the debate obstinate and equally passionate on issues like gender inequality. There is no need to fan the flames. Whatever the reason, there is an uncomfortable silence when it comes to political discourse for young Korean adults. A don't ask, don't tell policy of sorts, so to speak. Hidden disputes could easily become festering wounds, but for now, ignoring the mess seems to be the best, or maybe only, way out.
Some Like It Hot, a comedy film with a sharp message, by Rachel Jo. The movie Some Like It Hot, directed by Billy Wilder and released in 1959, belongs in the comedy genre of movies. The plotline of the movie is playful, and the three main characters of the movie make the audience laugh through their unexpected actions and personalities. According to the Cambridge English Dictionary, a comedy is a type of film, play, or book that is intentionally funny, either in its character or its action. People label movies as comedy films when the movie follows a set of conventions of the genre. According to film critic Tim Dirks, a film can be labeled as a comedy film when it generally amuses and provokes enjoyment within the audience, humorously exaggerates the situation, the language, action, and characters. Dirks also mentions that although these movies usually end with a happy ending, they explore and demonstrate the frustrations of life, and the humor may have a serious or pessimistic side. Although the aforementioned characteristics are general conventions of the genre, some subgenres exist within the realm of comedy, and films that are placed in the same subgenre share more similarities when it comes to plots and settings, such as slapstick, gags, satirical messages, verbal comedy, and screwball comedy characteristics. Like other films, Wilder's Some Like It Hot also follows the narrative form and general conventions of the genre. However, the film also stretches the genre since Wilder uses a different subject matter. While Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot follows the conventions of the comedy genre, as it falls into the subgenre of screwball comedy, plays with the notion of verbal comedy, and also sends a satirical message, the movie also differs from generic comedy films as it deeply comments on the society and incorporates gangster movie characteristics as well. Some Like It Hot falls into the subgenre of screwball comedy, since the two main characters disguise themselves by cross-dressing as the opposite sex, while demonstrating crude behavior. In his explanation of comedy films, Dirks further mentions the subgenre of screwball comedy, and explains that a screwball comedy film usually has wacky characters, identity reversals, a fast-paced improbable plot, and one-liners reflecting sexual tensions and conflicts between the characters. Through the three main characters, Joe, Jerry, and Sugarcane, the director successfully incorporates these characteristics within the film. While running away from spats, Joe and Jerry decide to take on different personas by dressing up as women and joining an all-women's band, where they meet Sugar. Both the men immediately fall for Sugar and take on absurd behaviors in order to get intimate with Sugar. Even when dressed up as his female persona, Daphne, Jerry forgets to remind himself that he is a woman and thus tries to sleep with Sugar on the train. In this scene, Jerry's comments reflect the sexual tension that he feels for Sugar. When Sugar asks Jerry if there is anything she could do for him, Jerry subtly responds that he can think of a million things, alluding to sexual behavior. This one-liner perfectly fits into the conventions of the screwball comedy genre, as it reflects the sexual tension the wacky character feels toward the other. In another scene, the main characters once again show screwball behaviors. Joe attempts to take on another persona as the grandson of the owner of the Shell Oil Company in order to seduce Sugar, and Joe falls in love with Osgood, another bizarre male character. By integrating these conventions within the film, Wilder stays within the certain boundaries of the comedy genre and also amuses the viewers through the exaggerated scenes and characters. In addition, the film follows another narrative form of comedy movies, verbal comedy. In the case of Some Like It Hot, verbal comedy usually comes out in the form of one-liners. The lines provoke laughter within the viewers, since the characters either mention something unexpected from that situation or have sexual connotation under what they tell the other. The interruption of the scene by clever lines that give a twist to the plot and lines that deal with taboo subjects belong to the category of verbal comedy. Two specific characters, other than Joe and Jerry, show their racy yet playful behaviors through their lines. The hotel's bellboy and the rich mama's boy Osgood fielding the third. Without realizing that Josephine, Joe in disguise, is a man, the bellboy continues to seduce him. The fact that a young boy fearlessly attempts to take on a full-grown man or woman intrigues the audience, but his atypical personality is further displayed through his manner of talking. When Josephine harshly turns down the bellboy, rather than running off, he instead smiles and mentions how that's the way he likes them, big and sassy. This type of verbal comedy not only appeals to the mature audience who recognize the implications of the character's remark, but also to the general audience, since they are aware that Josephine is a male, while the bellboy clearly does not. The director continues to utilize verbal comedy until the end of the movie. Joe, Jerry, Sugar, and Osgood run away from the gang, and Joe and Sugar finally declare their love for each other. Osgood wishes to do the same with Jerry, but after various failed attempts of dissuading him, Jerry admits that he is a man. Since the film was released in 1959, when society highly criticized homosexuality, the audience of the time might have expected Osgood to punish Jerry for deceiving him. However, Osgood surprises the audience when he tells Jerry that nobody is perfect and accepts Jerry as he is. The unexpected response Osgood gives throws the viewers off guard and ends the movie on a playful note. The movie conforms to the general rules of comedy since underneath the comedic lines and scenes, the film sends a satirical message towards its audience. A Warwick University blog post explains how comedy movies often entail satirical notions in which prevailing norms are attacked in the name of other non-dominant social values. And Dirks mentions in his commentary on comedy films that some films may have a serious or pessimistic side, and that comedy films may help us examine otherwise ignored, darker, serious, pessimistic subjects. Although the subjects handled are not as dark as war or illnesses, Some Like It Hot does mention mainly two social issues, the first about gender rights and the other about identity and homosexuality. In his film, Wilder shows how men treat women as objects and are fast to judge women by their appearances. To begin with, when Joe and Jerry first disguise themselves as women, they question how do women walk in these high heels, mention how uncomfortable women's clothes are, and add on that women must be catching a cold all the time. The difference in the practicality of the attire explains how society holds higher expectations on the physical appearance of women and thus makes them sacrifice comfort with beauty, while men do not have to go through this trade-off. Along with this example, various scenes portray how men take advantage of women. Sugar, a beautiful young woman, has been a victim of abusive relationships in which the male relies on her financially and leaves her after enjoying the presence of Sugar. She experiences the same situation repeatedly, and at the beginning of the film, the director shows how Joe has done the same to women. Also, men constantly approach women with sexual intentions throughout the film. While the female characters do not seem to show annoyance towards such treatment, Joe and Jerry are enraged when men purposely touch them and make remarks about their appearances. This contrast in reaction further underlines how men have been mistreating women to the point where women are numb, and through the reactions given by the two main characters, points out how society needs to change. However, the film also challenges the idea of gender identity and promotes homosexuality, but the director does so in a profound way in which he goes further beyond the general rules of comedy films. While the opening up about homosexuality itself, the notion of homosexuality in the film also stands for social change as well, and this commentary on social reform goes further beyond that of general comedy films. During the oppressive era of the 50s, due to the intolerance and political oppression, society had fixed gender identities, and in 1952, the American Psychiatric Association listed homosexuality as a form of mental disorder. Nevertheless, not only do the characters an attempt to break away from the oppressive era, the director uses a cast of the movie to represent this progression. In the beginning, only male characters prevail, and these characters live in a dark, dangerous, and oppressed society that is highly controlled by males with violent characteristics. However, toward the end of the movie, women start to have more influence over the storyline. Rather than focusing on the male characters currently running away from their past, representative of the Dark Ages in the US, the male characters bond with the female characters, and the movie shifts more toward a playful love story in a silly yet liberating setting. Wilder addresses this change in society quite literally by moving the characters from dark Chicago to warm and pleasant Florida. Once the male gang characters who belong in Chicago, in other words, who belong in the dark past, the characters threaten the well-being of serene and free Florida. In order to highlight that the past must be left in the past, Wilder kills these characters that continue to endanger the heartful and harmless characters of the new society. The main characters who are more open to change are the ones that meet a happy ending, demonstrating that as the US society moves toward a new society, people must learn to become more accepting. Since the movie tries to change the norm of the decade from producing conservative films to releasing films with more liberating concepts, in order to produce a society that is more open to change, critics can also say that in this way the movie deviates from other comic films of the time. Wilder's film does not completely comply with the comedy genre, since it also deals with the concept of gangsters, as well as actual crimes that took place, and thus forms a sense of suspense, tension, and a political statement within the film. The main plot of the film presents a story of two friends and the adventures they face during their journey in disguise. This plot is common in buddy films, and therefore the audience is aware that action involving the two characters would take place toward the end of the film. Nevertheless, the film starts off by building tension between society, represented by police officials, and gangsters, represented by Spats and his gang. Joe and Jerry become witnesses of a massacre carried out by Spats and his henchmen, and the gang plan to murder the two characters. The scene consists of blood and loud gunshots, which make the audience feel nervous about what might have happened to the two main characters. This same scene also alludes to the actual massacre, the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929, an incident in which assassins murdered 7 members of Chicago's North Side gang. This incident portrays the bootlegging era of the 1920s, and at the same time criticizes the severity and instability of the society at the time. The movie goes even further to mock the law of banning alcohol in the United States, since most to all the characters, including the main character Sugar Cane, enjoy drinking. Although Sweet Sue bans all alcohol consumption, all the women in the band secretly drink, an action that shows how many people did not take the law seriously, and therefore the bootlegging business held a lot of power. Therefore, by using the gangster and gang setting within the movie, Wilder does not simply write out a humorous film. Rather, the director writes a film that makes the viewers tense when watching the two main characters. Since most of the people of the era understand the severity of the problem concerning gang wars and their effect on ordinary people. While Some Like It Hot does follow most of the conventions of comedy films, at the same time the subject matter that the movie deals with goes beyond the conventions of comedy. The movie attempts to show the situation of the bootlegging era and the effects it had on society and the behaviors of individuals. Therefore, like movie attains a playful note and ends on a cheerful note. However, unlike general comedy films, which society consumes for simple entertainment and nothing else, the film leaves the audience tense and thinking about the instability of an oppressive society and how they themselves might need to change their behaviors in order to bring on a new developed society. Poems by Josie. In sleepless nights, where dreams with open eyes plague a sole individual. In drowsy afternoons, where illusions of the unpredicted pursue a solitary mind. In passing years, where thoughts of solitude haunt a single life. Smile. That ticklish feeling on my skin, those eyes that I want to lose myself in, the nerves which slowly go wild. I finally smiled. None. Tiptoed on wooden floors, glimpses of thoughts, haste, abandoned in 14-meter space, always closed the doors. Captured within the wall, 4 squares but one, doubled what felt like none. 3 perspectives, all in all. See her with all that's mine. Feel her for the first time. Hear her whisper at me. Realize how anxious to combine me, myself, and I. Editor's Picks. Poetic Justice by Kendrick Lamar, Seung Jo. Speak Now by Taylor Swift, Taeyeon Kim. Talking to Strangers by Maisie Peters, Mary Josephine. Don't Just Sit There by Lucius, Sora Boo. Depressed on Wednesday by Christian Kostov, Tomris Kurt. Speechless by Naomi Scott, Hye Min. Brave by Sarah Bareilles, Jeon Gang. Keep Your Head Up Princess by Anson Siebra, Bo-kyung Kim. I'd Rather Dance With You by Kings of Convenience, Yoojin Kim. Am I Wrong by Nico and Vince, Suyeon Jung. To Life by Jay Park, Jimin Woo. Speak Now by Taylor Swift, Soyun Jung. Gospel by Dr. Dre, Dohyun Park. You're Always Right About Love by Bye Bye Bad Man, Jiho Gang. Give Yourself a Try by the 1975, Donghyun Lee. Fusiukak Uluze by Noise MC, Arletta Khan. This was Quill on Air presenting to you Volume 76 of SNU's English Biannual Student Press, the SNU Quill.